Okay, let's see what we have here. Have questions briefly with the time that we have. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. All right. First question says, with an issues of NA from Chittagong, Bangladesh, Assalamu alaikum, is it extremism to use both water and tissue in istinja? Because Hadith said either this or that. You only use one of the two unless there is a major benefit in using both. If it's istinja from urination, just use water. And you can dry yourself off later on, male or female. There's nothing wrong with that. As far as if it's excretion, then if you want to use water and paper at the same time or one after another, that's fine. To be clean, to be thoroughly clean, like best. There's nothing wrong with that. What's important is just be careful of waswas. Bottom line, be mindful of waswas. And if you know you have a problem with overthinking things in the bathroom, stay away from extra stuff. Mahmoud G, MG from ATL, Georgia. How should one's relationship be with father when born from wedlock and the parents' time of Jahiliyyah? Well, a person is your father, unfortunately, whether it's from Islam or marriage or not. If a child was, conceived illegally, illegitimately, then we know the ruling of Allah and His Messenger. That's clear. However, the concept of you can't deny the fact that that's your father, especially if he raised you, even if you weren't married. You look just like him. That's your father. Show him some type of respect, love, call him to Islam. And the past is the past. It can't be redone. It can't be, taken back. You can't turn back the hands of time. That's your father. So, try to, have birr the best way you can. And, of course, the ruling of Allah and His Messenger stands. With regards to mahrams, hijab, with regards to inheritance, so on and so forth. But it doesn't mean that a person is not your father. Allah knows best. I want to skip a little ahead. There was a question by Samid Musallim from Cairo, Egypt. Where do you see HadithDisciple in 20 years from now? What I would like it to be 20 years from now, I would like, guys like you and yourself and other brothers, other sisters. In 20 years, I would like to be able to sit down and just drink my tea. Not saying I'm going to retire in 20 years, but the concept of I want you guys to be taking it to the next level. Okay, I want you guys to be taking it to the higher echelon, the next plateau. All right? I remember once I was at a funeral, and my uncle was there at the funeral. Uncle, he's Muslim, alhamdulillah. One of my uncles. And he was sitting around, he started talking about everything. He said this to me. He said, listen, he said, nephew, he said, you taking it to a level that your father dreamed of. Your father and other older brothers, the stuff that you're doing, that's what he told me, this was years ago. He said, stuff that you're doing is the stuff that they dreamt about. All right? And he says, the stuff that you're doing is the du'as that they made 20, 30 years ago. And I've heard this from other brothers as well. What you're doing is the du'as that we made in the 70s and the 80s. So you think about Ibrahim and Ismail, Rabbana wa ba'ath fihim, all right? Oh, our Lord, send among them a messenger who will do this and who will do that and who will do this. Rasulan minhum, a messenger from them. So that's what I envision for HadithDisciple. Whether it's Brother Samid, other brothers, other sisters that are devoted, Canada, Ottawa, Toronto, United States, wherever you are. That's what I envision for HadithDisciple, for those younger brothers and sisters to be pushing it to the next level. To be taking it to where I dreamed of and what my limited time couldn't allow me to get to. And my personal sins and shortcomings and flaws prevented me from going to. That's one of my visions of HadithDisciple in 20 years. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. May Allah make that so. I mean. But if in our Toronto, Ontario, Assalamu alaikum, does a sister have to wear full hijab in her home if her family doesn't allow her to cover the windows during the day? For Allah the best way you can. If you're going to be harmed by the heat, it's hot, stuffy, you can't, whatever the case may be, or not even that, but it says doesn't allow to cover the windows, you have to cover up. No doubt about that. But at the same time, you still have to talk to your parents and try to talk some sense into them and some logic into them, and know for sure that something will break and bend. Somebody's will, either yours or theirs. Allah knows best. Father's still a non-Muslim. He's your father. The lighting makes it hard to see through the windows, but it's your possibility of you being seen. I'm not sure. Like MB from Marietta, Georgia. What's the ruling on being naked? I.e., is it okay to walk around the house naked or sleep naked, where it's just me and my wife, and the house sometimes just me? Many scholars say that it's recommended to be covered up, even if you're by yourself, and that a Muslim should avoid unnecessarily being naked, even if they're by themselves, and that's because فَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن يُسْتَحْيَ مِنْهُ. The hadith says that Allah deserves for one to be shy in front of more than anyone else. So even if you're by yourself and there's no one around, Allah still sees you and watches you. Some scholars, they say this, and it shouldn't be done for you to just walk around naked, even if no one sees you. And Allah knows best. TA from Bronx, New York. What is the ruling? What is the sunnah way of counting for dhikr tasbih? I know to use my right hand, but sometimes I struggle with keeping count, especially for dhikr, like subhanallah or bihamdihi, that is. Do whatever's easy for you. Okay? If it's hard for you to do it, with your right hand, use your left hand. If you want to use beads or rocks or stones or an abacus, some scholars have allowed that. Scholars of sunnah. All right? What's important is do the best way that you can, inshallah. Me personally, I would recommend for you to keep striving and fighting to use your right hand. That's what I would recommend. And inshallah, it'll become easy if you keep on. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I personally don't use dhikr beads, nor do I use stones or an abacus or a calculator or the little finger clicker thingy that they give you in Mecca. I don't use those things. But some scholars have allowed that. And Allah knows best. Tayyip. All right, guys. We're going to stop here tonight, inshallah. Hopefully you guys have a good night. Jazakumullah khairan for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.